Zimbabwe's formal retail sector is in crisis.
It seems like Shoprite has finally shut down their outlet.
It appears to be going low on stock by the looks of things. Currently, its Lagos location appears to be empty.
Yeah, this is said. So Choppies has announced that it's closing all 30 of their shops.
Billions of dollars evaporated. I've stood in what was supposed to be the future of global retail. The consultants saw the dream. They had the spreadsheets. They had the McKinsey reports. They had the African rising narrative. They told their shareholders, this is a gold mine, we just need to show up. I've walked into boardrooms in Dubai where they showed me these exact PowerPoint slides. I've sat through the African rising pitch countless times, and every time I knew what they were missing. But look at the reality. Big name retailers forced to downsize, sell off operations, or shut stores. Some are completely obliterated or gasping for breath in African markets. Shoprite, hemorrhaging cash in Nigeria before pulling the plug, announced the divestment of its Nigerian business in August 2020. Game stores, massive restructuring and closures, in some cases, complete exit. These weren't startups run by amateurs. These were titans. They had deep pockets, decades of experience, and armies of MBAs. And yet, they walked into African markets and got absolutely slaughtered. So what killed them? I'm about to take you to the crime scene. We're going to perform an autopsy on 3 specific failures. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the biggest brand in the world are bleeding in markets where a street vendor with neither venture capital nor consulting budgets is thriving without any of the corporate advantages. Before we dissect these cases, you need to know the lens I'm using. Because if you look at this through a Western business textbook, none of it makes sense. This isn't an African problem, it's an expansion discipline problem. My perspective comes from what I call the trifecta. First, I've been in the boardroom. I've spent 20 years negotiating deals and building brands for global giants in Seoul, Dubai, Jordan, and Paris, amongst others. I know how the corporate machine thinks. I know the pressure of quarterly reports and the obsession with scalable models. Second, I'm a doctoral researcher. I don't just read the emerging marketing reports. I write the critiques that tear them apart. But third, and most importantly, I know the street. I've stood in markets that look like pure chaos to a CEO in London. But to the people working there is a sophisticated network of trust, reputation, and unwritten rules. And when you try to impose order on that system without understanding it, you don't bring progress, you bring extinction. Here's the fundamental mistake. The biggest lie in global business is that a consumer in Lagos is just a consumer in London who hasn't been reached yet. That assumption is the bullet in the chamber. Today, we're visiting 3 specific crime scenes to uncover the 3 traps that kill retail expansions: the menu mismatch, the retail apocalypse, and the structural trap. And stick around until the end, because I'm going to reveal the uncomfortable truth about who is actually winning while the major Western retailers retreat. And it's not who you think. If you want to see how the winners are doing it differently, the brands making millions in markets where the giants struggled, hit subscribe right now. Because what I'm about to show you will change how you think about emerging markets forever. Hi, I'm Lale Jimo, and here at GidiGrit, I expose what the textbooks and global consultants got wrong about Africa. Let's get gritty. The section 1 of this episode is the menu mismatch, and the crime scene is in West Africa. Over the past decade, multiple international fast food chains have attempted to replicate their success from Joburg and London into West African markets. Their strategy? copy and paste. Before we dive deeper into food, let's zoom out for 30 seconds and put this into a proper global perspective. Let's start with a brand everybody assumes gets global right. Coca-Cola ran the Share a Coke campaign, swapping the logo for people's names. In places like the United Kingdom, it became a case study in how personalization can explode cultural relevance. It was a massive success. But here's the part most people miss. What worked in one culture did not translate cleanly everywhere. In fact, take Israel for an example. The personalized name bottles ran into a representation gap. Reports noted that some communities couldn't find themselves reflected in the name set. It was the same tactic, different cultural terrain, instant friction. And in China, Coca-Cola has run versions where the mechanic shifts away from strict first names towards nicknames and relationship labels, built for how closeness is signaled locally. And that's the point. The failure mode isn't bad marketing, it's copy-paste marketing. A global idea forced into local identity system. Now, let's get back to food and apply that same logic to menu mismatch. Here's a pattern I've observed repeatedly. South African brands built their empires on flame-grilled beef. The bottom logic was that humans love meat, we sell the best meat, therefore, we're going to win the market. They treat menu like a fixed product spec and the customer like the variable. This is what I call the arrogance of standardization. I once sat in a strategy section where an executive was reviewing West African expansion plans. I asked him, have your team or you yourself eaten at a local shop bar? The response, we have consultants for that. That's when I knew the approach was flawed. Here's what you notice on the ground. Walk into a shop bar or your corner restaurant across Ghana and you will notice something consistent. Beef is present, but it's not the primary offering. It's an occasional indulgence, not a daily staple. When you try to change the customer to fit the product in emerging markets, you've already lost. The rule is simple. You must fit the product to the customer, not the other way around. Forcing a beef-centric model into a chicken and fish culture, dead on arrival. Now, let's look at the opposite problem. Nando's entered multiple African markets. This should have been easier because they literally sell chicken. In the UK, Nando's is chicken Nando's. It's casual. It's a Tuesday lunch. You spend a modest amount of pounds and you're out, belly filled, happy for the day. But in West Africa, the cost structure is different entirely. Imported supply chains, generator costs for consistent power, the need to maintain global standards. The price point drifted upward. They became too expensive to be casual, but at the same time, not too prestigious to be fine dining. They got trapped in no man's land. But here's the detail that actually creates the competitive disadvantage for them. The thing that doesn't show up on the spreadsheet is about the sides. In the West, sides are functional. Chips, coleslaw is just fuel to accompany the protein. On the contrary, in West Africa, food is emotional architecture. When you go to a street vendor, you aren't just buying chicken, you're buying jollof rice, which carries cultural significance. You're buying a spiced fried plantains that trigger nostalgia. You're buying fried yam. These aren't sides, these are identity. The local vendor delivers that emotional connection plus the protein, often at a noticeably lower price point than international chains. International chains offering sterile chips and mayonnaise coleslaw in a market that creates spice, texture, and cultural resonance. They are not competing with other restaurants, they are competing with culture. And culture wins every time you ignore it. And I don't say that as a theory, I live this to reality myself, but in reverse. In 2015, I was in Seoul, Korea, staying around Seoul Shudong. Permit me if I got the name wrong. I was surrounded by incredible healthy local food, but my Lagos taste buds went into shock. I couldn't connect with the palate. So where did I end up? KFC. And here is the irony. Even in Seoul, KFC was identical to the version I knew from home. The menu had local twists, different items, different flavor cues. But it still worked as my anchor because the brand codes were similar and familiar to me. The format, the look, the taste, the direction, the predictability. It felt like home adjacent in a city where everything else felt foreign. For 5 days, I basically had a permanent table there. Not because it was the best food in Seoul, but because it was my saving grace. It struck a resemblance to what I knew from home. It became my anchor in a foreign sea. And that taught me something brutal about markets. Familiarity isn't a nice to have, it's a survival tool. When I was the outsider in Seoul, I needed an anchor. Now flip it. When you bring a brand into Accra or Lagos, you are the outsider. And if you don't give people an anchor, if you don't respect what already feels like home to them, they won't slowly warm up to you, they will reject you. Now, you might ask, if that's true, why is KFC successful in these markets? Because KFC adapted. They didn't try to impose American standards or strictly the Colonel's recipe. They localized with precision. KFC sells jollof rice in their West African locations. They introduced local meal options that align with cultural preferences. But while some brands figured out the menu code, other giants were walking into a much bigger trap, one you can't fix with a menu update. And that takes us to section 2, the retail apocalypse. And that crime scene is both happening in Nigeria and Kenya between 2018 and 2024. It was the death of the hypermarket dream. Shoprite and Mismatch game from South Africa, giants with decades of retail dominance, massive capital, supply chains sophisticated enough to run national scale retail logistics. They looked at African markets and saw an opportunity. We'll bring the modern shopping experience, one-stop shopping, air conditioning, everything from televisions to tomatoes under one roof. The field of dreams strategy. Build it and it will come. They built it, but the long-term results didn't match projections. Shoprite announced a divestment of its Nigerian business in August 2020. The model didn't scale the way the spreadsheets promised. Their once fully packed malls turned into a graveyard with empty shelves. And they later moved to exit Kenya after struggling to make the format work. Mismatch closed multiple game stores across Africa as part of a wider restructuring. Here's what the consultants completely missed. These retailers positioned their massive stores in high traffic areas in Lagos and Nairobi. On paper, this is retail 101. High traffic equals high footfall, right? Wrong. In London, traffic means people and mobility. In Lagos, traffic is a barrier, is a pain that you don't want to witness. The consultants miss the reality of the commute. Nobody wants to spend 3 hard hours burning expensive fuel, sitting in gridlock that drains your energy just to buy grocery at a mall. But the failure goes deeper than that. It's about the format. To shop at Shoprite or Game, you need 4 things. Number 1, car or money for a taxi. Number 2, it's the time to burn in traffic. Number 3, enough cash flow for larger basket and fixed pack sizes. And number 4, comfort with pricing without negotiating it. Now, compare that to Mama Put or the kiosk on your corner. The informal sector has what I call street capital. First, access. She's literally 15 meters from your door. You can walk there in slippers. Second, breaking bulk, and this is very crucial. The average consumer earns daily or weekly wages. They cannot afford a monthly sack of rice. The street vendor will sell you a single cup of rice, single cube of seasoning, a 20 milliliter bottle of cooking oil, a single diaper, or even a repackaged small beverage. Price negotiation is expected. She aligns her business model with your actual flow. Third, credit. She knows your face. She knows your family. If you're short today, you pay tomorrow. Try asking the cashier at Shoprite for a credit line because you're waiting for your wages. They'll call security. Shoprite built a glass fortress. To the average Nigerian consumer, that glass doesn't signal quality. It signals high prices I can't negotiate. It signals a place that doesn't understand my reality, or alternatively, a destination for occasional experiences, not daily shopping. They built temple to efficiency in a market that values access and relationship. And to a lot of locals, it wasn't a daily essentials destination. It was an experience center, an amusement park where the escalator feels like a mini roller coaster for first-timers, a backdrop for birthday photo shoots, and a set for social media videos. The fourth, prices are significantly higher. Many products are imported. Local products come with premium packaging that drives up costs. To the average consumer, this feels like paying for packaging, not value. And in retail, price is king. And that brings us to the most dangerous trap of all. Because while culture and location can be adjusted, this next trap is structural. It's the one that takes even profitable operations look like failures on a global balance sheet. And that's the section 3, the structural trap. Crime scene number 3 is between Nigeria and Zimbabwe. This is where the formal economy faces its greatest challenge. In recent years, we've seen significant changes. Unilever restructuring operations, Diageo reducing its stake in Guinness Nigeria, Nestle streamlining product lines. Did Nigerians stop drinking Guinness? No. Did they stop using soap? Absolutely not. The brands fell into the structural trap. Here is the nightmare that keeps CFOs awake at night. Western business models assume currency stability. The math is brutal. You manufacture in Lagos, you sell in Naira, but you report your earnings to London in dollars. You import raw materials priced in dollars. Your shareholders expect dividends in dollars. You can have a record-breaking year in local sales. You sold more units than ever before, but if the Naira devalues significantly in that same year, your sales can be up locally and your results can still look ugly in the hard currency. You're running on a treadmill that is moving backward faster than you can run. You work twice as hard to earn half as much in your reporting currency. But to see the extreme version of this, where the formal economy becomes a competitive disadvantage, look at Zimbabwe. Shoppers, a retail chain from Botswana, entered Zimbabwe with the full corporate package, compliance, taxes, official exchange rates. They faced intense competition from who? From the Talk Shop. These aren't just convenience stores. They operate as cash-based businesses. Many transact in US dollars. They bypass formal banking constraints. Here's the competitive dynamic. Shoppers, the formal retailer, must use official exchange rates, must pay formal taxes, must wait for central bank to allocate foreign currencies for imports. The Talk Shop, operating in the informal space, sources with cash, sells for cash, restocks immediately, operates outside formal currency controls. The result? Talk shops or your corner store often price products considerably and undercut formal retailers materially because compliance calls get passed to the shelf. Consumers choose them not because they prefer informality, but because the formal tax, the cost of operating as a registered compliant business, gets passed to the consumer. In an economy with currency instability, Being formal becomes a competitive disadvantage. Being agile is survival. The Agios decision in Nigeria illustrates this. When they reduced their stake, they described it as a business model transformation, moving to a licensed royalty partnership while selling operational control. That shift signals a hard truth about volatility. Global structures struggle when the operating reality becomes unpredictable. Local operators are often better positioned to navigate the day-to-day. It's a strategic retreat. So let's recap the autopsy. International chains struggle when they ignore the culture of food. Hypermarkets struggle when they ignore the reality of daily economic life. Corporate retailers struggle when they can't adapt to structural instability. The textbook says, build it and they'll come. But the reality says, understand the street or struggle to compete. Here's the twist. While major Western retailers are restructuring and retreating, look at who is thriving. The West is retreating, the East is expanding, and local champions are rising. They aren't using the McKinsey playbook. They are using strategies that embrace local realities, leverage existing relationships, and adapt to structural constraints. Before you expand into any emerging market, ask 3 questions. 1. Does our product align with daily economic reality? 2. Does our format align with how people actually move and transact? 3. Can our financial structure survive currency instability? In our next video, we're going deep on the invasion. I'm revealing the playbook that Chinese retailers, Indian FMCG distributors, and Lebanese trading houses are using to win in the exact same markets where giants failed. Same street, different strategy, completely different results. If you want to understand the real business playbook for emerging markets, not the textbook version, but the gritty reality, hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss the next episode. I am Olale Jimo and this is GidiGrit. I'll see you next time and thanks for seeing this video. And let's get gritty. Bye for now.